Hey everyone, and welcome. There's a massive, but surprisingly quiet revolution happening in the world of spirituality. And it's not about new rules or grand cathedrals. It's about something much more personal, a fundamental shift in where we find the sacred. It's about moving our gaze from the heavens down to the messy, beautiful, ordinary lives we're living right here, right now.
But let's just start with a question for you. Does that traditional idea of God, a perfect, unchanging being, way out there, far removed from our world, does that really connect with you anymore? For a lot of us, there's a growing gap between that distant, kind of silent figure and the very real, very present need we have for meaning and connection in our everyday lives. And this disconnect, well, it creates what you could call a God-shaped gap. It's that empty space between the old ideas we've maybe inherited and the actual reality we live in day to day. Now, the traditional Western framework for this has a name: classical theism. The core idea is that God is purely transcendent, and what that means is God is completely separate from creation. This God is immutable, which means unchanging, and impassible, meaning totally unaffected by anything that happens here in our world. It's the ultimate out there divine being. And this slide just lays out the friction perfectly. It's like a tale of two realities. On one side, you have that classical, unchanging, distant God. And on the other, our modern lives, where we're desperately trying to find meaning in change, where we crave connection, and where we long for a sense of presence in the small, everyday moments, not just in some big event. That's the gap right there. So, the big question is, how do we bridge that gap? Well, this brings us to what's really a great spiritual shift, the incredible move from thinking out there to looking in here. And the solution is so simple, but it's also incredibly profound. We stop looking further and further away into the cosmos, and we start looking closer, much, much closer. Right here, in fact. To really get this, we just need two key terms. First, transcendence. This is that classical idea we've been talking about, right? The divine is beyond, it's outside, it's totally separate from our material world. It's the out there model. And its counterpart is the really revolutionary idea of immanence. This suggests the divine is within the material world. It's manifested in it. It permeates it. The divine isn't just out there, it's in here. It's closer than your own breath. Okay, so making a shift this big, from a purely transcendent God to an immanent one, it requires some new blueprints, some new ways of thinking about the divine and how it relates to our world. And maybe the most important new framework is something called Panentheism. Now, this is really crucial. It's not pantheism. Pantheism says all is God. Panentheism says all is in God. Think of it like this. The entire universe is contained within the divine, almost like its body, but the divine itself is still greater than and transcends just the universe. This table lays out the differences so well. Up top, you've got classical theism, with its totally separate God. Down at the bottom, you've got ideas like pantheism and secular spirituality, which tend to see the divine as identical to nature and often not as a personal being. But panentheism? It's the bridge. It lets us have a God who is both immanent, with the universe as its body, but also transcendent, personal, and, this is key, affected by our world. And building on panentheism is an even more radical idea: process theology. It basically argues that if God is affected by the world, then God can't be some static, finished being. Instead, the divine is dynamic. It's in process, evolving and changing right alongside creation itself, which means we affect God. So these are huge cosmic ideas, but how do they actually change our lives? Well, that brings us to the sacred ordinary, the art of finding the divine in the most unexpected places you can imagine. And this isn't some new age fad. This idea has deep, deep roots. Way back in the 17th century, a monk we know as Brother Lawrence wrote that he found God just as easily in the chaos and clatter of his kitchen as he did in formal prayer. Isn't that amazing? Today, we have a name for this practice: the Liturgy of the Ordinary. It's this beautiful, practical idea that our spiritual formation doesn't happen on some mountaintop. It happens in the small, repeated habits that make up the very fabric of our lives. So where can you find this sacred presence? Well, how about in the soap suds while you're doing the dishes, or in the simple rhythm of folding laundry? Maybe in the quiet moments of your daily commute. Heck, it can even be found in the frustrating act of losing your keys, or the simple grace of an afternoon nap. And here's a powerful twist.
The goal of this whole practice isn't to achieve some state of perfect, blissful peace where you avoid all frustration. No way. The goal is to actually use the frustration.
You can think of it as a kind of intentional friction. It's a really simple three-step process. First, just acknowledge a moment of irritation. You're stuck in traffic, a chore is taking forever. Second, surrender your need to control it, just for a second. And third, reframe that feeling of irritation. See it as an invitation, an opportunity to be present and connect with something deeper, right there in the middle of the mess.
Okay, this brings us to our final and maybe the most empowering takeaway from all of this. Because this shift doesn't just change how we see the divine, it radically changes how we see ourselves and our place in the whole cosmos.
Remember we talked about process theology? It suggests that the divine's power isn't coercive. It's not a puppet master pulling all the strings. Instead, it's persuasive. It works with and through the free will of everything in creation.
The implications of this are just staggering. It means your choices are real. They genuinely matter. Your daily actions, your kindness, your struggles, your growth, they aren't just some sideshow. You are an active participant, a co-creator in the ongoing, unfolding story of the divine.
So the ultimate message of this whole immanent revolution is this. Your life, in all its ordinary, mundane, frustrating, and beautiful detail, matters on a cosmic scale. You are not insignificant. You are part of the very body of God.
So the final question isn't really about God, it's about you. If the sacred is present in every moment, every object, and every single person, what will you choose to pay attention to today?